I think most of us would agree that 2020 is a year for the record books. But when specifically talking about Xbox, this is the year that Xbox silenced all their critics. Let's talk about it, shall we? What is going on, everybody? It's Randall Thor19, the man with the million, back again with another video. Hope everyone's having a fantastic weekend, and you guys can do me a huge favor. Make sure you hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and please share this video out on social media. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for all the support. Well, it certainly has been a very interesting last couple weeks. From Microsoft spending $7.5 billion on acquiring ZeniMax, Bethesda, and a whole boatload of incredible studios, to Microsoft sending out Xbox Series X preview units to a whole bunch of influencers and press so they can get hands-on with the console almost a month and a half before it's set to release. These past couple weeks have not only seen gamers, but critics alike actually start to believe in the plan that Phil Spencer and his team over at Xbox has been putting in place since 2018, and in my opinion, they have basically silenced all their critics. Now, I'm not sure how long this video is going to be yet, because I'm kind of just speaking off the top of my head, but I will say that we're going to touch on a variety of topics, from Xbox Series X hardware and how Microsoft sent out to set the benchmark for console gaming this generation. They said that 2 years ago, and oh yeah, it came true, even though a lot of people doubted it would happen. To Game Pass and its sustainability and the fact that Game Pass only has AA indie fodder games, to Microsoft wanting to have a industry-leading first-party studios organization, and nobody, including myself, really believed Phil Spencer when he said that quote back in 2018. And then of course there's everything surrounding PC. Microsoft has made tons of promises regarding supporting PC gaming and making it a priority for them, but of course the PC hardcore and critics never believed that Microsoft would do that. But I'm going to start off talking about Xbox hardware. The Series X and Series S, both of them due out on November 10th, one for $500 and one for $300. Back in 2018, when we were talking about the next Xbox and the eventual PS5, there was a debate among people about which system would be more powerful. Obviously, if you flash forward to today, we know that answer. The Xbox Series X is undoubtedly a much more powerful system than the PlayStation 5, but people always kind of went back and forth, the critics, the fanboys, and the trolls. But Microsoft and Phil Spencer laid out a clear vision all the way back at E3 2018. And if you don't believe me, watch this clip.
And of course, our hardware team. The same team that delivered unprecedented performance with Xbox One X is deep into architecting the next Xbox consoles, where we will once again deliver on our commitment to set the benchmark for console gaming.
All the way back in 2018, Phil Spencer and Team Xbox made the claim that the eventual Xbox Series X, or Project Scarlet, whatever you want to call it, was going to set the benchmark for console gaming in the future. And what do we have today? Series X, a way more powerful machine than the PlayStation 5. Sure, we know that now, but leading up to the point where both systems got revealed, there was definitely a war going on in the trenches between the fanboys and the critics that didn't believe Phil Spencer's claims. It's actually funny to look back at the discussion late 2018 and most of 2019 before the official specs were revealed for both consoles. A lot of PlayStation gamers assumed that the PS5 would be more powerful, and who was feeding into those claims? Well, those fake-ass insiders that said the PlayStation 5 was going to be and is more powerful than the Xbox Series X. But we all know the truth. Those guys ended up being complete liars. And Series X, from day one, when Microsoft started the project in 2018, had a single goal in mind with Series X, and that was to set the benchmark. They proved that and silenced those critics. Then there's the other piece of hardware, the Xbox Series S. I recall when Phil Spencer said that they wouldn't be out of place on power and price, and he was 100% right. The Xbox Series X is the most powerful. Xbox wins the power crown, and Xbox has the price crown with the cheapest next-gen console, which is the Series S at $300. I recall when people said that the system was canceled and wasn't coming out. Of course, those same fake-ass lying insiders, but now when talking about the Xbox Series S, it's drifted into territories that it's going to hold back next generation. But when you listen to the Dirt 5 developers and Digital Foundry basically say that's not the case, it is certainly not going to hold back next generation, well, all I can say really is fanboys and critics silenced once again. But now we gotta talk about what most people consider the weakest link in Xbox, and that is their first-party studios. Entering into this generation, Microsoft only had 6 first-party studios, a number way lower than both PlayStation and Nintendo. And those studios, just off the top of my head, are the Coalition, 343, Mojang, Rare, and Turn 10. And here we are, 1 month from the start of next generation, and Xbox has 23 first-party studios, all making a variety of content, from big AAA blockbusters to smaller AA games. But back at that same E3 where Phil Spencer said the Xbox Series X would set the benchmark, he also made a promise about Xbox first party.
And let's talk about our games themselves. We are committed to building an industry-leading first-party studios organization.
Trust me, when Phil Spencer said that they were committed, Microsoft was committed to building a industry-leading first-party studios organization, all the critics, all the fanboys, and even myself really didn't believe that Microsoft had it in them, that Microsoft cared that much about gaming. But here we are, 2 years and 17 studios later. I'm a believer, and I think pretty much everyone is. Phil has kept his 2 promises from E3 2018 regarding hardware and first party. And I've even seen some critics out there mention that Microsoft may now have the best first-party studio out there, better than Sony's and better than Nintendo's. Now, only time will tell if that turns out to be true, but right now, Microsoft has more first-party studios than PlayStation. And if you went all the way back in time to 2014 and said, hey, by the start of next gen, Microsoft not only would have more first-party studios than PlayStation, but have significantly more studios, everybody would have laughed at you. Just another example of Xbox and Phil Spencer silencing the critics. Now, the service that goes hand in hand with Xbox's first party and is the driving force of the Xbox platform moving forward is none other than Xbox Game Pass, and has definitely been a wild ride regarding what people thought about the service when it was originally announced in 2017 and how the goalposts and the narratives have completely shifted here in 2020. It's actually been a wild ride with Xbox Game Pass. I recall the critics saying that the service really wouldn't amount to anything, that nobody was really going to pay a $10 fee for mostly a mixture of some indie games and some older AAA titles alongside some 360 back compat. But then you flash forward a couple years and it is the best value in gaming, and a lot of people consider it the best thing about gaming right now. Microsoft decided to put all of their first-party titles into Game Pass day one. They actually have a whole bunch of AAA games entering the service, sometimes 3 to 6 months later. A lot of great indie titles launched day one, and it has been a boon for developers. So no longer is the talk about how Game Pass isn't really going to amount to anything because PlayStation Now didn't take off. The conversation is, well, is it really sustainable for the trillion-dollar company that is Microsoft? Says all the fanboys who must have their business degrees from a Cracker Jack box. To this idea notion that Game Pass only has AA indie fodder. I don't know about you guys, but I always found it absolutely hysterical that once when Game Pass proved itself, the topic of discussion shifted to how Microsoft wasn't making any money and it wasn't sustainable. But yet, when Microsoft purchased Bethesda, they kind of snuck it in there that Game Pass had 15 million subscribers per month, paying anywhere between $10 a month to $15 a month. Now just imagine what that subscriber growth is going to be like when the new consoles come out and Microsoft has a whole bunch of titles in their day one for people to subscribe to the service to play on their brand new hardware. And then imagine what is going to happen when Halo Infinite, that juggernaut, comes into Game Pass day one. Is the service going to be at 25 million by then? And then if we get to the end of 2021 and the new space epic Starfield hits Game Pass day one and it's as great and as huge as we all imagine, could the service be hitting 30 million subscribers within a year and a half from now? It's certainly possible, and it would definitely curb stomp all the people talking about sustainability. And then we have my favorite, that Xbox Game Pass only has AA indie fodder games, right? Even though you have huge AAA games like Forza Horizon 4 and Gears 5 launching in this service day one, even though you have a Game of the Year candidate, Doom Eternal, joining just a couple days ago, and all of Microsoft's future first-party titles like Avowed and Fable and Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 and the next Doom and the next Wolfenstein, etc., etc., etc. These people are obviously clueless, and it's another example of Microsoft and Phil Spencer silencing the critics. And lastly, we need to talk about PC and how Microsoft has embraced the platform despite the PC fanboys and the critics saying that they never would. And of course, I don't really doubt them there. They look at Microsoft and Xbox and they remember Games for Windows Live and how Microsoft was essentially trying to charge PC gamers to play online, and that completely failed. So I understand the skepticism. But in 2020, you can no longer deny that Phil Spencer and Xbox have kept their commitments and their promise to PC gaming. All their first-party titles launch day and date on the Windows Store within Xbox Game Pass for PC, so if you want to play it for cheap. There's even some PC-only exclusive like the Age of Empires franchise, Gears Tactics, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. They've built apps like the Xbox Game Bar to make PC gaming easier for those within the Xbox ecosystem. And if you don't want to play their games on the Windows Store, they actually release everything day and date on Steam. Once again, just another example of Xbox and Phil Spencer silencing the critics. So this would be where I normally end the video and ask you guys to like and subscribe, but this time I'm going to end it with a quote from Phil Spencer from that infamous E3 2018.
We have committed our team, our company, our technical resources so we can declare to you today and next year and all of the years after that, you will always experience the best in gaming on Xbox.